You may have already heard about and seen a campaign that's begun about a red ribbon and the idea of putting a red ribbon or a cloth or something on your front door, on a mailbox, some representation at your house. You may have also heard that that has some significance historically, and actually historically in the Bible. It goes way back to the time when the Israelites were being released from Egypt. And you remember there were plagues. The very last plague was the most horrific. It was a plague where the firstborn of every family was going to be killed. And God instructed the Israelites, He said, look, what I want you to do is I want you to get the blood of the lamb and use a certain plant. I want you to paint. I want you to put the blood of that lamb on the doorpost across the top of the door. And when they did that, the death angel passed over their house and they were protected. And that's kind of the history behind that. And from that came the celebration of Passover, came the understanding that each year the Jews were to celebrate when the Lord passed over their house. And we've carried that on through, and you know, the Jewish folks celebrate that still today. And as Christians, we celebrate that because it's a significant story in the Bible. Well, let me tell you something you may not know. Every year, Passover and Easter doesn't necessarily coincide. The dates of those two are determined in two different ways. Some years they're very together. Some years they're close, a little bit further apart. Sometimes they don't even coincide. Well, this year, believe it or not, Passover begins next Wednesday, April the 8th. And we'll conclude on Thursday, the 16th, the evening of the 8th to the evening of the 16th. Could it be that right in the middle of that is Easter? Well, what if God is about to do something phenomenal, something supernatural in our midst? It would encourage me, it would give me great hope to know that in the midst of this time when this virus, this pandemic we find ourselves in is maybe at its height, maybe it is going its strongest, it may be that right now God is about to pass over. He's about to pass over. Now what that meant in the Bible is that the plague ended. Well, what if in these days we can believe that beginning next Wednesday in the season of Passover, that God is going to bring an end to the Passover, to the pandemic, that He's going to pass us over, and that on Easter Sunday, which falls right in between those two dates, that we can truly celebrate the resurrection of Christ, the resurrection of lives, the resurrection of people. Now, I don't know, I don't claim to have a direct word from God on that. I'm just trying to put together the evidence and say that in 2020, the dates coincided, Easter right in the middle, in this thing that we're celebrating with ribbons, where we're celebrating a sense of protection, that God would come and cover the earth, cover the entire earth with a Passover. And that it would bring the end to what we're now experiencing. Well, I want you to join with me and be encouraged that God can do something that big. I hope in this season of epidemic and pandemic that you've understood a broader, bigger picture of God. And that He could surely do that. If it's part of His purpose in all this, if it's part of His plan, His sovereignty will come to play. That next week, Easter Sunday, we might do more than just celebrate what we have every year. It's worth celebrating. The resurrection of Jesus Christ is worth celebrating. It's the reason we have life today. Because Jesus rose from the grave. But what if in addition to that, we got to celebrate an obvious sign or wonder from God that the worst of plagues that most of us have ever experienced, is going to end similar to that 10th plague, which was the worst that we can imagine. The death of every person's firstborn, except those who had covered themselves in the blood of the Lamb. Well, as I conclude, I hope most of all you've covered yourself in the blood of the Lamb. I hope that the events of these days, maybe a prayer experience at the hospital on Wednesday night, has allowed you to examine your relationship with Jesus Christ. And maybe you've discovered that you need to be covered by the blood of the Lamb, that your sins need to be forgiven, or that you need to be reawakened to a first love. Well, I want to invite you to do that, because I guarantee you, I have undeniable evidence in many people's lives that will give you hope. That will give you encouragement. That will allow you to see the God of the impossible in a brand new way. And here's what I know. It might be possible that God in our midst, in the next 2 weeks, will do something supernatural that will be undeniable, that will be done without a shadow of a doubt, indisputable truth. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.